Good evening. It has been a very busy week in the world of politics with a couple of historic turning points for the country and the world. On tonight's broadcast, we will bring you the latest on a nuclear deal forged with the country of Iran, also history in the making in the U.S. Senate as they implemented their own nuclear plan. Later in the broadcast, developing news in regards to the United States position in Afghanistan, and we will take a look at Friday's memorial service for the 50th anniversary of one of the darkest days in America's history. I'm Megan Roberts, and this is The Rundown. The historic announcement came last night that the United States, as well as 5 other world powers, have reached a deal with Iran in regards to their nuclear program. The deal delays the country's nuclear program in exchange for relief from the painful economic sanctions the U.S. had placed on Iran. This deal marks the most significant accord between Washington and Tehran in more than a quarter century. And I'm sure you'll have no problem believing that not everyone in Washington is satisfied with the deal. Democratic Senator Chuck Schumer says he's disappointed in the deal with Iran over its nuclear program. The 6-month agreement eases some sanctions on Iran in exchange for new limits on Iran's nuclear program, but Schumer says the deal falls short of his expectations and he'll push to pass new sanctions against Iran. He doesn't trust Iran, but President Obama says the agreement is an important first step toward a comprehensive solution on Iran's nuclear program. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry says while the deal eases some sanctions on Iran, it rolls back Tehran's enriched uranium stockpile. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has also criticized that he doesn't trust Iran, but on CNN this morning, Kerry said he stands behind the negotiations.
Exploring and testing the possibility of a diplomatic solution. But let me be clear, we do that with eyes absolutely wide open. We have no illusions. You don't do this on the basis of somebody's statements to you. You do it on the basis of actions that can be verified. And moreover, we have kept the basic architecture of the sanctions is staying in place. There is very little relief, and we are convinced that over the next few months, we will really be able to put to the test what Iran's intentions are.
Kerry insists the agreement to limit Iran's nuclear program makes Israel safer, but he says strong verification tactics will be needed in order to hold Iran accountable to the deal. The deal also caps off nearly 3 months of whirlwind diplomacy following a decade-long global nuclear. That's the message the Iran GOP playbook CNN obtained a copy of. The book details a comprehensive strategy to win over public opinion. It suggests videos, digital flyers, and social media posts Republicans can use to drive home problems with the Obamacare. Athena Jones reports.
A new 17-page House Republican playbook reveals the strategy behind sustained attacks Republicans have staged against President Obama's health care law and its error-plagued website.
It's now obvious that the reality of the president's health care law simply doesn't match the promises the president made to the American people to sell it.
More than 7 weeks since Obamacare launched and days away from the president's deadline to fix the troubled site, congressional Republicans continue to exploit it.
Young adults are now witnessing the increase in health care costs.
It is taking away our health care plans.
Their goal, to create a public groundswell of opposition to it, a gamble they hope will pay off for the GOP in next year's midterm elections.
It looks like any Democrat in a serious re-election fight is neither eager nor proud to run on Obamacare.
The Republican playbook aims to keep the focus on what they say is a bad law and keep the pressure on the White House and Democrats in Congress. The strategy calls on GOP members to use social media, digital flyers, and video
book to actually fix a broken healthcare system.
President Obama continues to suffer in the polls, his approval rating plummeting to 41%, an all-time low in CNN polling, with 50% of Americans saying Republicans will have more influence over the country in the next year. Athena Jones, CNN, The White House.
Well, with that being said, there still could be some light at the end of the tunnel. At least in some states, California health officials say 10,000 people a day were registering on the state's exchange as of last week. On the flip side, health officials there also rejected the president's fix for people who want to keep their plans. They voted Thursday not to allow people to keep policies that don't comply with the requirements of the Affordable Health Care Act. Republicans and Democrats are still at odds over whether the problems with the Affordable Care Act stop at the launch of the website or pervade the entire law, and whether the Republicans have an alternative plan to reform the U.S. healthcare system if they repeal Obamacare. House Minority Whip Democrat Steny Hoyer of Maryland spoke on CBS's Face the Nation, appealing to Republicans not to repeal the Affordable Health Care Act.
The Affordable Care Act, Bob, the majority of the American public says, look, we need to fix it,
into legislation.
repeal it.
And anyone looking to sign up for Obamacare will have more time to do it. The Obama administration announced Friday the deadline to enroll has been extended through December 23rd. That's about a week more than the original deadline of December 15th. Those who purchase insurance by the 23rd will have coverage that starts January 1st. According to a CNN analyst, nearly 156,000 people have signed up for health insurance plans through Obamacare's state-run marketplaces as of Friday. The Department of Health and Human Services has not released numbers on how many have signed up through the federally run marketplace at healthcare.gov. And in other news, airlines may be preparing for a big change soon in-flight cell phone calls, but there's mixed reaction to the news. Even the FCC chairman is divided over the proposal. He says he personally doesn't like it, but there's no technological basis for a ban. Alexandra Field has the details.
A proposal to allow airline passengers to use cell phones in flight has travelers talking.
You might want to talk the entire flight at a loud voice about every single problem you have in your family, blah, 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 blah.
I don't think it's
Union
correct
the
to be able to.
Voted back in 2004. They still are.
As you know, airplanes fly thousands of feet, metal tube in the air, and we don't want any kind of situation that could increase any ability to have a volatile situation on board the aircraft.
If given the option, it's already clear that some airlines wouldn't be on board. Delta Airlines says if the FCC changes its policy, will Delta allow voice communications on flights? No. But it's a big opportunity for telecommunications companies. Service in the sky could have customers paying through the nose.
This is potentially a multi-billion-dollar industry for cell phone companies and device manufacturers. Once this ban is lifted, it's not going to be like your regular phone will just work perfectly. You're going to either have to sign up for extra service or you're going to have to pay serious roaming charges, probably in excess of $2 per minute for every phone call you make.
Expensive, right? That's because experts say installing the new equipment on board could cost $3 to $4 million per plane. Alexandra Field, CNN, New York.
And when we come back, the Senate makes the historic decision to enact its own nuclear plan, and we will discuss the fate of the U.S. in Afghanistan.
Last night, Kaprakuzi scored 2 goals on Aliyah Brianlove. And
Joe, get out. Adam, you're in.
Lori Korpakovsky scored 2 goals on Ilya Brizgalov. Got it!
Oh, did you know that the shower uses about 7 gallons of water a minute?
I did not.
Wow, that's crazy.
Speaking of which, I gotta go shower now.
Every night before the show, me and the guys, we like to loosen up a little bit.
Blue, 42, hike!
Every now and then, Dan likes to take it a little too far. But hey, the show's all about competition, so we'll take it.
Existing chamber rule that is sure to worsen the tensions and further the divide between Democrats and Republicans on Capitol Hill. It's known as the nuclear option because of the broad and serious implications of its deployment. It calls to mind the Cold War, when a nuclear strike by the United States or Soviet Union against the other would all but result in mutually assured destruction. The move, which overturned the requirement for a 60-vote majority for most presidential nominees, is an unprecedented power play by Democrats, and one that is sure to reverberate in both the long and short term. Republicans warned before the vote that the GOP will retaliate should they retake the majority. Radioactive fallout after the Senate triggered the nuclear option, dramatically changing the rules on approving judicial nominees. That change sets a potentially huge new precedent. Shelby Lynn explains what it means and its possible impact.
Puts a chill on the entire United States Senate.
Those words from Republican Senator John McCain after Democrats voted to change the rules on the filibuster. They voted to lower the number of votes needed to break a filibuster from 60 to 51, a simple majority. It eliminates a minority Senate ability to Harry Reid. Here they are arguing against changing the rule when Republicans wanted to do it.
If they choose to change the rules and put an end to Democratic debate, then the fighting and the bitterness and the gridlock will only get worse.
The filibuster is far from a procedural gimmick. It's part of the fabric of this institution we call the Senate.
Republicans are angry and upset over the change. Republican Senator Lamar Alexander says the move is an effort at pushing the president's regulatory agenda.
This is a power grab. It's Obama 2. It's another partisan political maneuver to permit the Democratic majority to do whatever it wants to do.
CNN legal analyst Jeffrey Toobin says the Democrats almost had to do this to get anything done at all.
The House is in Republican hands. No legislation, not even immigration, it appears, is going to get through. So there are not going to be any laws passed. So all Obama can do now for the rest of his term is to get his people on the courts, in administrative agencies. And this is how we can do it.
The rule change applies to presidential executive nominations like ambassadors and agency heads and judicial nominations, except to the U.S. Supreme Court.
State John Kerry, who while making history and establishing a nuclear deal in Iran, also negotiated agreements between the United States and Afghanistan. The agreement would govern relations between the U.S. military and the Afghan government for years to come. The new proposal, still to be approved by both the U.S. and Afghan administrations, calls for a sweeping long-term relationship with the United States, committing Washington to paying to train and equip Afghan security forces, and establishes the groundwork keeping armed American outposts in Afghanistan. The president of Afghanistan and the United States are disagreeing, however, about when a bilateral security agreement should be signed. President Hamid Karzai told thousands of tribal elders, called the Grand Assembly, that the security agreement should not be signed until after their elections in April. However, the United States wants it to be signed by the end of the year. The State Department says signing the agreement sooner rather than later is essential to give Afghans certainty about their future before the upcoming elections. The department says it will also allow it to plan for any potential presence in the region after 2018 that would extend to
Last night, Lori Capracuzzi scored 2 goals on Aliyah Bryanlove. And
Joe, get out. Adam, you're in.
Lori Korpakowski scored 2 goals on Ilya Bryzgalov. Got it!
Oh, did you know that the shower uses about 7 gallons of water a minute?
I did not.
Oh, that's crazy.
Speaking of which, I gotta go shower now.
At the show.
Welcome back to The Rundown. I'm Megan Roberts. The world's best city for shopping is, and this might not come as much of a shocker, New York City. That's according to a CNN analyst based on 4 major categories: the quality of transportation, bargain opportunities, brand variety, and the mood of the city. New York, home to designers, showrooms, and vintage shops, scored the highest total points when all the categories were tallied up. Tokyo came in second, and London at third. And retailers are trying hard to compete for your money this week. Several stores are launching their Black Friday sales early. Alexandra Field reports.
The Mad Dash used to start on Black Friday, shoppers crushing for steals and deals. This year, bargain hunting is beginning a week earlier. Walmart is slashing its prices for a pre-Black Friday sale that started on Friday. That's 7 days before the shopping holiday that keeps creeping up on Thanksgiving Day.
We know last year, 35.
At this Best Buy in Fort Myers, Florida, they're already camping out for Thursday's sales. Same thing in Akron, Ohio.
A couple of us are looking for TVs as, presents for family.
The National Retail Federation says millennials are driving the Thanksgiving Day shopping trend, but it isn't for everyone.
It's just absolutely crazy. I know they do it every year, and every year I say the exact same thing. It's just crazy.
Black Friday still draws the biggest numbers. 46% of consumers will hit those sales, and 34% of shoppers will be back in stores Thanksgiving weekend. So, had enough yet? Of course not. Cyber Monday is around the corner, and it isn't just for Monday anymore.
Last year, the days Cyber Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday were all over $1 billion online.
Alexandra Field, CNN, New York.
And for those of you who will be traveling this week to meet your families for Thanksgiving, and if you're staying in a hotel, forget room service in a movie. Hotels are now offering guests other ways to unwind after a long day of travel. Karen Kafa reports.
Bike program after guests are stuck in to pedal away from it all.
We have a great bike program where we have about 7 bikes that we loan out to guests so they can use them to travel around the city. And DC is such a friendly, bike-friendly city that's a great option for people.
Kimpton Properties also offer in-room yoga mats, understanding how unforgiving holiday travel can be.
Your diet is blown or your exercise regimen is blown, and so we try to provide lots of options for you to be able to do those things when you're in our cities.
Similarly, many Westin hotels have a run concierge to lead group runs, so an unfamiliar landscape isn't a deterrent to exercise. And if you're still debating whether to stay with family or do something different, Thanksgiving travelers will find holiday hotel rates relatively flat from last year, according to AAA. In Washington, I'm Karen Kafa.
Well, following the break, WTOP News Director Jacqueline Hart as well as WTOP's Ian Demling will join me to discuss one of the darkest days in this nation's history as the country celebrated the 50th anniversary of the assassination of President Kennedy. Stay with us. You're watching The Rundown.
Scored 2 goals on Aliyah Brian Love.
And Joe, get out. Adam, you're in.
Lori Korpakowski scored 2 goals on Ilya Bryzgalov. Got it!
There we go. Can we throw 3? Welcome back to The Rundown. I'm Megan Roberts. Joining me right now to talk about the 50th anniversary of the assassination of President John F. Kennedy is WTOP's News Director Jacqueline Hart as well as WTOP's Ian Demling. Guys, thank you for joining me tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Well, as we saw the country celebrate, and I guess celebrate is kind of the wrong term to use here, but kind of take a moment to acknowledge the 50th anniversary of the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. In a way, it was a celebration, though, to celebrate his legacy. And what Dallas, they set up the memorial service for him. What they wanted to focus on was not the assassination itself, but
his entire term.
Yeah.
I mean, he focused on so much. So I think had he had a chance to live, everything would have changed. So seeing the celebration 50 years later is really something for us to really marvel in.
I agree. I think it was a great commemoration of the incredible journey that was our country, the amazing country of the United States of America. John F. Kennedy had such a high approval rating of all of the American citizens when he did pass, and just seeing what it would have been like to have 8 years with John F. Kennedy in office.
Absolutely, and a lot of historians did look at this in regards to, what if this president had stayed in office for at least to even finish out his first term in office. He was killed only 3 years into his term, around 1,000 days into his term, and he really wasn't able to implement many of the things that he wanted to, and he wasn't able to, carry through many of his visions and his ideas for the country. And he was such a different president in that he
may rise,
many new
an idea lives on, which basically goes without saying. He did pass early, but his ideas and the things that he wanted to accomplish did move on with Andrew Johnson then taking over. Of course, it didn't go exactly the way that he had originally planned, but his original ideas are still impacted on us in our lives today.
Jackie, we, I guess in our lifetime, we were not around for JFK's assassination, but we were around for 9/11. Do you see a correspondence between that? Like, we will always remember where we were?
Absolutely. I mean, we have our parents, the baby boomer generation, where they think back to this day, and I was in elementary school, I was doing this, I was doing that, and I think 9/11 is our generation's biggest tragedy. So I think they hold a direct correlation.
Do you think that the celebration of John F. Kennedy's life and legacy, and of course the anniversary of the assassination of the most popular president